Welcome into our season preview for the 2021 Capital Baseball program. I'm here with head coach Ryan Grice, entering his 12th season leading the program. Thank you for joining me today, Coach.
Thanks for having me.
So to start off, last year your season was cut short after just 13 games. So how does it feel for baseball season to be finally back and everything ready to go?
Tell you what, it's nice to get out on the field. This is the first week we've been out on the field. It's been challenging, of course, being inside and being restricted with numbers and how many we can practice with. So it's just good I think it's good for guys to get around each other. I think that's one of the most important things. Obviously, the sport is important and going out and competing is important, but just for guys to get around each other and to feel the camaraderie that these guys are used to having, being on an athletic team for so long. I know last year was tough when we got shut down and guys just had to separate and go their separate ways. So yeah, just to get back out and to compete and get outside on the baseball field. I know for a lot of guys it's relieving for them. It gives them a sense of normalcy, which I think is real important for some of these guys.
So going into the season, your team is going to have really a different look on the diamond. All OAC performers Shane Lyons and Bo Otto have graduated, along with a number of other seniors. And those two guys manned the right side of your infield for the last few years. So who are you looking to step in and fill those roles on the field?
Well, I think that's going to be the challenge for us. A lot of young guys, and we were planning on playing a lot of those young guys last year. But yeah, you had some real mainstays in the lineup with Connor Richardson and Bo Otto and Shane Lyons. I mean, some of those guys were obviously real important to what we did and how we did things. So yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge is we got 2 or 3 first basemen that are going to battle it out. You got some middle infielders that are young, freshmen and sophomores that were, some sophomores that were getting on the field last year and just got to battle it out a little bit. So that's going to be the real challenge. And I don't know if we're going to answer those questions before the season starts, to be honest with you. I think we got to get into some competition and get into just how guys are performing on the field. And I think those things will play out as the season goes on. But I think for a lot of teams and a lot of programs, those are going to be questions that they're going to have to answer as they go forward, especially in a situation like us where, a lot of the growth for those young guys got kind of stunted a little bit. They were getting on the field, but then 11 games in, obviously we had to shut it down. So you really didn't get the full growth of some of those young guys. So I think that's going to be a process for us this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So the left side of your infield, Logan White was a young guy who made a lot of starts for you last year at the hot corner. And Drew Ellis was the main guy at short. So we're going to see those guys in those spots once again this year.
Well, Garrett Kennedy will be there. He was a freshman last year as a sophomore. We got another freshman behind him that, that's going to compete as well. So, yeah, Logan White is going to, he'll probably be at third base. But we got some guys that we want to move around and get playing time. And the way we're doing things this year is we'll be playing 4 games on a weekend. 2 9-inning games on Saturday, 2 9-inning games on Sunday. So that's a lot of baseball for a lot of these guys to play in 2 games. So I think that'll be a good time to kind of get some younger guys in, get some guys off their feet a little bit, get some younger guys in and kind of see the depth that we have, because we feel like we have good depth. It's just young and inexperienced. So we just got to get them out there, get them experience. And hopefully the goal is, and what we preach to our guys, is we need to learn how to stack good days on good days, right? Day after day, we got to stack those days together. And then that's how you start progressing through what you want to do. And I think that's a hard concept for some young kids. Those are things you got to figure out. And those are things that we'll just keep teaching as the season goes on.
Yeah, you mentioned that you're playing 4 9-inning games in 2 days. So that's quite a bit of baseball. So behind the plate for you, you graduated Ben Bethay last year, who was splitting duties with Brandon Barnett, who's still around. Right. So what is that position going to look like this year? Because obviously Barnett can't catch all 4 games.
That's tough. So you got Jay Lewis. You got Lewis who's coming in. He's a sophomore, Jay Lew. He's progressed very nicely. We got confidence that he can go in and play. And then you got 2 freshmen, that are behind him. So the 2 freshmen we like. Those are kids that are talented, but that's catching is one of the hardest transitions when it comes from high school to college. Catching and pitching are going to be 2 of your hardest transitions. So they got to learn how to call a game. They got to learn how to kind of be the quarterback, of the defense when everybody else is out there. So again, you just got to put guys out there and see what they can do. I wish I had these answers, but quite frankly, until we get on the field, until we see some opposite opponents, you're really not going to create those answers until you get guys out there and put them under the fire a little bit and see how they react.
Absolutely. Totally understandable. So in the outfield, it looks like you have a little bit more certainty there. You have Cole Callahan in center, and the plan last year was for Cameron McLeod in right. So is that kind of still the plan this year? And then who will be in left field for you? I know you probably don't have that answer either yet.
Right. Yeah. Well, we had a transfer come in. Chase will come in. He'll solidify one of those positions in the outfield. Connor Black will be there. He's returning from last year. Cole Callahan obviously is a 2-year guy that's been playing quite a bit. So, and then we got a couple of freshmen that, again, are in and competing and look pretty good. So we'll see how they make those transitions. But I think those 3 guys, as long as well as Maxwell as well. I mean, he'll come in and he's a junior who's been around for a little bit. Hasn't got on the field too much his first 2 years, but has really done some nice things for us. He was probably I would say our MVP and most improved going into the fall, and he's really continued that as we've gone into the season. So we're trying to create some depth out there in the outfield, but again, we're still going to have a freshman or 2 that's going to have to step up and take some innings just to get guys off their feet a little bit in those long days.
Sure. Speaking of innings, the pitching staff last year was one of the questions for you last year, and you had a lot of freshmen coming in. Last year was going to kind of be, the learning year for a lot of them, see what you had and what you did in the different places. But obviously the season was cut short for you. So, Scott Gutstein is a senior. He's made some pretty significant starts for you. Then going down the line, there's quite a few freshmen and sophomores with very little experience under their belt. So can you talk a little bit about who we might see regularly out on the mound this year?
Yeah, I think that was the one position that was probably affected the hardest because we did have so many freshman pitchers that were throwing last year. So that's one thing. Scott's going to be our number one. You got Jared Heidecker, who's a senior, who's been around, he really made strides last year as a junior. So we think he's going to be a mainstay. Whether he's the kind of guy that we can start on certain days, we can use him in relief on certain days. He's just one of those guys that says, "Give me the ball and I'll be fine," which is nice to have. So you got Tucker Kraft, who's going to come in. He got some good innings last year as a freshman. Clark, who got good innings as a freshman, and Newell got real good innings as a freshman last year. So we're hoping those guys continue from their success in last year and keep stepping up as sophomores. So we're excited about the young pitching staff. So it's just a matter of, like I said, getting them out on the field, see what they can do. But they got real good innings last year. Even though we only got 11 games, those guys got some pretty good innings last year, and they would have gotten even more, obviously, innings. But I think that was the group that was probably affected the most just by not getting on the field and getting the experience. So we've challenged those guys. We've challenged those guys to come on and give us important innings that we need and to be starters. And some of those guys were relieving last year. Some of them were starting. We want those guys to start this year and be starters because you're going to need 4 solid starters to get through 4 9-inning games. I know what order those guys are in, we'll kind of figure out, as we go through and experience some things. The guy we do know is going to be there is Scott. Scott's going to be our number one. He's the guy with the most experience and kind of like a crafty pitcher. Doesn't throw 89. He's an 82 mile an hour pitcher, but he's got 4 pitches to go along with it. So he'll always give you a good start. And then then that sophomore class is going to be heavy in what we do and getting them out there and getting more experience this year.
That's great. Yeah, it sounds like you've got a pretty good plan in place to weather that 4 games in 2 days.
We're trying. Yeah, plans are great on paper, but we'll see what happens when we get on the field. So yeah, we'll those guys will compete. I know they'll get out there and they'll compete. I think that's the one thing we're going to have to rely on. I think our defense is going to be pretty good this year, even though we're young. I think we're very talented defensively. Pitching wise, I think we're going to get in there and throw strikes and compete, which is obviously the most important thing. Offensively, usually is the hardest part to get a young group to really start. It takes some time. It takes some time seeing some live pitching. You try to do as much of that in practice as you can, but it's not the same until you get in front of another team. And we start out with Marietta, so we're gonna find out really quick, how much progression we've actually made. So I think we need to be a little bit patient with our offense and keep improving and just take it day by day and get better every day. But I think we can rely on our pitching and our defense to keep us in most ball games.
So you talk about a lot of the young guys. That's just kind of the onus here is all on the young guys. I would imagine that Shane and Bo and Connor from last year, all that senior class, not only provided a really high level of play, but also a great deal of leadership that now needs to be taken on by someone else. So who will you be looking to this season to step up as leaders and take on that challenge and lead this team?
I'll be honest. I think that's been one of our biggest challenges. It really has, because that's something that came very natural to those guys, especially Shane Lyons. That came very, very natural to him. And when he spoke, people listened. So he was not only was important position player wise, but he was obviously important when he was an extension off the coaching staff. So you're looking at guys like Scott and Cole Callahan, even guys like, say, Maxwell. He hasn't played so much, but he's a guy that's very respected on this team by the work that he puts in. So you really have to start relying on those guys. And it's our job as coaches to teach those guys how to do things, how to be a leader, how to be a captain. I think it's important. I think a lot of coaches tell kids that they're captains, but never really teach them how to do it. So we want to go through the process of teaching all of our guys how to be captains and how to be good leaders, but also how to be good teammates as well. And then once you start teaching those guys things, and as they mature, they kind of step into that process pretty naturally on who's going to be a leader, who's going to be a guy that can actually tell somebody something and have the younger guys respect them enough to actually go do it. And I think that'll kind of build along with everything we're doing this year too. Because as guys get on the field and as they perform, I think the leadership aspects become a little bit more natural to them. Again, those are just things that we're just going to have to keep building as we go through things.
So lastly, what's the feeling around the team right now for you guys? For you as a coach, but also from your players? It's been a long offseason. I can imagine that you're all ready to get to that first series with Marietta.
Yeah, I think just anticipation. I think that's the biggest thing with our guys. We just want to go out and compete, play well, do things the right way. When you do those things, good things are going to happen. The wins and losses take care of themselves by the preparation that you do. So I think, honestly, it's just a relief to our guys this year or this week, just getting on the field, everybody together. It's a relief to the coaches a little bit. It's a relief to the players. So I think it's just a situation where the kids want to work. The kids want to put the time into it. There's probably still a little bit of frustration with things just because we're not able to do everything that we're normally allowed to do, which is understandable. We just keep preaching to the guys. We got to be thankful for what we have and thankful for what we get to do this year. If we get all 40 games in, we're going to be thankful for that. If we get 25 games in, then let's be thankful for that. And let's get better in those 25 games, and let's get better in our preparation and what we do.
Well, thank you for sitting down with me today, Coach. I appreciate you taking a few minutes and look forward to opening day on Saturday versus Marietta.
All right. Sounds good. I appreciate it.